Okay. Okay. George, could you switch me now?
I just made you a presenter, so go ahead.
Okay. And is my screen now on?
You need to click OK and show my screen.
Click OK. Where's the OK button?
You should have.
Oh, you've been made the presenter. When ready, show my screen.
Yes. Dan, we're live.
So how do I do? Is it? Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so welcome everybody to the Green Hotel webinar series. I'm delighted that you're here. We have over 100 people on the line, and George, oh, here we go. So, George, do we see presenter Dan Ruben on the screen?
Do me a favor, go to slideshow.
Okay, I go to slideshow and then what?
Just go from beginning.
Yeah.
There you go.
Great.
There's it clear.
Okay, we're ready to go. So welcome to the Green Hotel webinar series. My name is Dan Ruben. I'm the Executive Director of Boston Green Tourism. We're an organization of 30-some hotels in Greater Boston that are improving their environmental performance. I also organize.
Can you minimize your panel?
Yes. How do I do that?
Orange button.
That does it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Boston Green Tourism is an organization of 30 hotels that are going green. I also organize webinars like this one and workshops around the country, and I consult with hotels on going green. George, I'm trying to advance the slide, and oh, here we go. So this webinar series, our objective is to help hotels reduce energy, water, waste, and toxins. This is a business webinar series. We're helping hotels achieve their business objectives of reducing costs and increasing revenue by going green. And included on the revenue side is helping hotels distinguish themselves by earning a green hotel certification. We're holding 6 webinars. The dates are in front of you. You need to register for each one individually, and I hope you register for all of them and that you tell your colleagues to register for them because we have some fabulous presentations. I should mention that this webinar series is funded by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. One part of it is that they are funding me to do 10 individual 2-hour training sessions for hotels. So far, 4 hotels have signed up. So if your hotel is interested, we have 6 more slots. Today, we're going to talk, here's the agenda. I'm going to talk about how U.S. hotels benefit by going green. Then Dan Cook is going to talk about how hotels slash their water use and their water bills. And Mike Rosenkranz is going to talk about how hotels could use energy-efficient electric motors and save money and achieve other benefits in the process. 2 program notes. One, please type in your questions during the session. This is a jam-packed session. I don't think we'll get to all of the questions. So if we don't, we'll answer your questions personally. And these presentations will eventually be posted. And when they are, I'm going to notify everybody who registered for at least one event. In that way, I will see your email address. Okay, so how do hotels benefit by going green? How do they achieve business benefits? And here's my presentation outline. This is what I'm going to cover in the next 12 minutes or so. There are different perspectives on what's meant by going green. From an environmental perspective, the most important thing a hotel could do is reduce their energy use, or in other words, their energy bills. By cutting fossil fuel use, we help address climate change and other important environmental issues. There are other important priorities too: reducing water, waste, and toxins, offering guests and staff greener transportation and greener food choices, and educating staff and customers about what you're doing so that they'll be able to take these ideas home with them. There are other perspectives about what's meant by going green. Your owners might think that going green is, they might like the projects that do the most for the hotel's bottom line. Your guests will notice whether or not you have in-room recycling bins a lot more than they'll notice whether you have the latest energy-efficient chiller, because they're never going to see that chiller. But when they have a can of Coke in their hands and they want to recycle it, that will be important to them, whether or not you have recycling bins. If you're going for green certifications, then the certifier defines what is meant by green. And if you're applying for business from a meeting planner, they may have their own criteria. So I say all this as a way of saying your hotel and your hotel green team should decide what are you trying to achieve by going green, and then go about your planning accordingly. Probably the most important thing about the business objective that hotels achieve by going green is cost reduction. Some hotels that I work with have cut their energy bills and their water bills by over 40%. I think it's very common for hotels to cut their energy and water bills by at least 20%. I know Hyatt Regency Boston is on the line. They used to use 12.2 million kilowatts of electricity per year. Now they're the last I saw, they're down to 6.6, and they're still going down. So in other words, these hotels that have cut their energy use by 40%, they haven't stopped there. They will continue to achieve further reductions. There are also big savings possible in waste reduction. And for those hotels that are in states or countries where trash removal costs are high, recycling can also add to the bottom line. There are various ways in which going green can bring in more business. If your hotel attracts convention goers or other big meetings, then you know that some of your RFPs have questions about your environmental practices. But meeting planners can go online for some of this information also. Green hotel certifications are often posted online. Some cities like New York now list the ENERGY STAR scores of all of their hotels, and soon many other cities in the state of California will do that also, not just hotels, but all of their commercial buildings over a certain size. The World Travel and Tourism Council and APEX and ASTM offer some methods for meeting planners to figure out how green hotels are also. Leisure visitors also favor green hotels. Some leisure visitors favor green hotels, and it's becoming easier for them to find out this information. In particular, the TripAdvisor certification is now almost a year old. It's now the most popular certification, and when people plan their trips and use TripAdvisor, they will see the Green Leader certification front and center. AAA, Travelocity, Expedia, and Orbitz also highlight green certified hotels. And hotels advertise their green achievements. They use internal marketing to show their guests how they're green, and they use public relations at times to show that they're green. A word about certifications. The best way that a hotel could prove it's green is by having somebody else say it, and in other words, getting green certified. The most common, visible, and useful certifications in the United States are TripAdvisor, ENERGY STAR, Green Key, Green Seal, the Green Restaurant Association, and individual state certifications. For those of you listening from other countries, there are there are different certifications that apply in your countries. If there are some hotel groups and even in at least one hotel chain that organizes their green program to score better on some of these certification programs. And you might do it too. If your goal is to achieve a certain certification, you might organize your program to become certified or certified at a higher level. There are other revenue opportunities by going green. Some hotels sell allergy-friendly rooms at a premium. Some offer green weddings. And it's becoming more common for hotels to have green menus, often featuring local foods, for both their restaurants and for meetings. There are non-financial benefits of going green. Some people, particularly young people, like to work for green businesses. When we change our cleaning products, for example, to less toxic products, it reduces the health risks to your housekeeping staff and might improve their attendance. And healthy indoor air quality could lead to improved productivity from your staff. There are increasing incentives and pressures on hotels to green up. Most importantly, a lot of states offer funding for energy efficiency projects. Technology is improving and getting cheaper all the time, so energy efficient lighting and motors and more help hotels go green. And as mentioned, some cities prod their hotels by to reduce their energy use by posting their ENERGY STAR scores. Of course, energy concern is growing. For everything that I mentioned above, for all of the reasons mentioned above, hotel chains have very aggressive green goals. I listed here Starwood, Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, IHG, and Wyndham, but there are many more, Fairmont, that have very aggressive green goals. As you could see for Starwood, for example, across their properties, their goal is to reduce their energy use by 30% and their water use by 20% by 2020. So in conclusion, there are important business reasons for hotels to go green, to save money and attract customers. These incentives and pressures to go green are increasing, and the green hotel movement is well underway and adopted by the major hotel chains and, of course, by many independents. So for this webinar series, the next 17 presentations that you'll see have hundreds of ideas to green your hotel and to reap the benefits, including the next 2 presentations today. Here is my contact information, and I'll introduce the next speaker. Dan Cook has been in the energy and water efficiency and renewable energy business for over 30 years. He's the president of Conservation Solutions Corporations, which specializes in energy and water efficiency for large commercial and industrial customers, including hotels. Dan has published many articles and has been a presenter at many forums on energy and water efficiency. Dan, are you on the line, and are you controlling the screen?
I'm on the line, and there we go. We're all set there. Minimize this. And everything's visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Dan, thank you and Boston Green Tourism for organizing this webinar, and EPA for sponsoring the program. This is really a great opportunity for hotels to get great ideas to take action on reducing water and energy costs, which is going directly to your bottom line. Now, I will be talking about water efficiency opportunities in hotels, and I'm trying to advance, and I'm having trouble doing that. I can't move my slide to the next slide.
If you scroll to the bottom of the left with your arrow, you should see an arrow that you could, bottom left.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay. Voila. Okay. So this is our agenda. I'm going to give an overview of world water issues just to give you perspective, and then we'll get into the details, dive right in on reducing water use in hotels where it's used, common areas, rooms, kitchens, laundry, and HVAC equipment, and then wrap up with talking about behavioral, no-cost kinds of things that can be done and getting started with water efficiency in your hotels. And then a note from our sponsors, EPA's hotel challenge, and WaterSense products, which I think you guys should really find interesting and exciting. So first off, our planet's mostly water, but only about 3% of that is fresh water, and 70% of that is frozen in ice caps and glaciers, and 29% is underground or aquifer-based water supplies, and then less than 1% is lakes, rivers, and streams. And I think Fortune magazine said it well when they said water promises to be the 21st century to the 21st century what oil was to the 20th century, the precious commodity that determines the wealth of nations. So aquifers, I'm a geologist in my background, my educational background, and so I get into this, but I think it's useful to know about this. In the past, we had tapped water from unconfined aquifers that recharged from rain and runoff, and but now the drilling technologies have improved dramatically over the last few decades, and we're tapping these confined aquifers or fossil aquifers that are confined geologically and do not recharge. And so what happens when fossil aquifers are depleted in countries with large and growing populations like Yemen, China, and India, even the U.S., Mexico, and other countries? We're facing a dilemma. This is a graphic of the water supplies relative to the rate at which we're pumping the groundwaters, and it's a pretty frightening prospect at this point that we need to watch what we're doing. And this is where the water is going. We're mostly using water. 70% of the water we extract goes to agriculture, and this is what it costs to. This is the amount of water required to grow the food we eat. And beef is a big one. 5 million gallons per ton relative to the wheat, rice, and corn. So when countries import food, they also import huge amounts of water. And as we're finding out in the last few years with the droughts in the Midwest, that with climate change, for every 1 degree we increase the global temperature, there's about a 10% reduction in food production, which is, again, frightening. And Benjamin Franklin, 200 years ago, when he said, "When the well's dry, we'll know the price of water," hit the nail on the head. This is a kind of a graphic of some of the areas around the world where there's stresses on water supplies. And India and China represent 38% of the world's population. China used to be a net exporter of food, now is a net importer of food, and is also buying up the largest pork producer in the U.S., and so they're putting stresses on water supplies in other parts of the world. And now as we reach peak oil and peak water at about the same time, we're seeing some significant stresses. And Mark Twain tells us whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting. He's got it right. So let's get in. We'll dive right into the water efficiency opportunities for your hotel, and with that as a perspective of where water is in this country. And we typically see 30 to 50% savings on water efficiency projects in hotels, which is significant and a dramatic reduction in your operating costs. And that's done through investment grade audits and customized engineering solutions. And we look at comprehensive programs. We really emphasize that because you can hit the really short, couple of month payback items, but then that doesn't leave some of the savings from those short items to pay for the longer term items. And it's so worthwhile looking at water as a comprehensive program. And these are some of the opportunities we look at, and I'll get into these in more detail as we get further along in this discussion. Now, water rates, keeping water in perspective, this is what water costs around the country. It's a huge range in the cost of water, everywhere from in St. Louis, Missouri at $3.32 for water and sewer, all the way up to, what's the highest one? I think Atlanta is $21 100 cubic feet, which is a dramatic change that will impact your payback rates. And water and sewer rates are increasing dramatically across the country. In fact, the water and sewer increases are surpassing the consumer price index for the last 20 years. So submetering is a nice way to get a handle on where water is used in your hotel. Your water meter from the utility is certainly the best way to go, and you have an overview of what's going on. But submetering areas where you have a lot of water use and there are issues where you're getting leaks or there's significant water use that you don't expect, and be able to catch that on a immediate basis, charting is important. Utilities also will provide a daily water use charting service, and I would use those services. Get a hold of your water utility, and so you can respond, like in this graph below, right away when there's a toilet's leaking or a major leak in the facility. You can catch it within a day, versus letting it go for weeks, months, and sometimes years. We've seen in some cases. So now we're getting into specifics of measures that you guys can do in your hotels to reduce operating costs. Faucet aerators are really simple. We've had managers just put these in themselves and no one knew about it, and there's a significant reduction in water use in a hotel. We go from 2.2 gallons a minute down to 0.3 to 5 to 0.5 gallons a minute. If there's kitchens in the hotel room, we probably go to a 1 gallon per minute faucet aerator. But over 29 years for a 200-unit hotel, or over 10 years on a 200-unit hotel, we're looking at around $29,000 in savings. With toilets, this is just the water side. The aerators were both energy and water. You're getting an energy-saving component because it's heated hot water, and so that's a quicker payback. Toilets is just water, and we're switching from typically a 3.5 gallon per flush toilet, sometimes 1.6, all the way down to 0.8 gallons per flush, or 1.28 gallons per flush. And you can also go with dual flush toilets that are 0.5 for number 1 and 0.95 for number 2. Again, significant savings. It may not be that 100% return on investment, which is pretty hard to beat in the stock market these days, but 22% return is not bad. And you combine that with the faster paybacks with it, which use energy and water savings, you're looking in this case about a $44,000 reduction in cost over 10 years. Check with your local water company. Sometimes there are incentives because there's a real shortage of water and they're trying to motivate their customers to go to low flow toilets and low flow or efficient water using equipment. Showerheads, most showerheads we see in hotels are 2.5 gallons a minute. We can go down to 1.25 or 1.5, and the technology's really improved a lot, and it's a very comfortable shower. Again, energy and water savings, 200-unit hotel, $61,000 over 10 years. Dramatic return on investment, 121%. Worth taking advantage of. Now, some hotels have the management has specified the shower head, so you can't replace the shower head unless you use a fairly expensive shower head product. And so we have gone to shower head restrictors in those cases, and can drop again the water use from 2.5 to 1.5. But you have to properly size the restrictor. For example, we did a study of a hotel a couple of weeks ago where we tested the water pressure on the first floor at 60 psi. You go up to the sixth floor, it was 35 psi. So that the restrictor on the first floor would not work very well on the sixth floor. So you've got to size the orifice and these restrictors to the specific pressure. And there we go. Urinals, a lot of hotels don't have urinals, but the larger ones typically do, and there's a good opportunity there. It's really simple. You basically turn the water off with a zero flush urinal and go from 1.5 or 2 gallons per flush down to nothing. And pretty good return. There's a hotel, larger hotel with conferences and so on, will basically use about a swimming pool or two's worth of water per year. And so there's significant savings. Some folks don't like doing the cleaning on those. There's another approach we've been taking with urinal pads with enzymes that basically eat up the uric salts, and there's a significant savings with these. And you just use the existing urinal. There's no renovation or retrofit of the existing urinal, and turn off the water. But the enzymes eat the uric salts and prevent scaling, and there's a deodorant that keeps it so that it smells nice in the hotel too. Some folks don't want to go that route and you know, opt for a flush urinal. We'd recommend a ½ gallon per flush versus the 1.5 to 2 gallon per flush that you may have now. There's urinals that have 1/8 of a gallon to 1/4 of a gallon per flush, and I tend not to recommend those because when the urine reacts with water, it creates uric salts or scale. It builds up and can cause fouling behind the pipe. So I'd go with ½ a gallon per flush if you're going to a low-flow urinal flush valve. This is sort of the future of dealing with water use in hotels, but phosphate rock fertilizer is a limited resource. There's about 100 years of that left. That's our primary source of phosphate, and as it turns out, urine is a great fertilizer. And urine makes up about 1% of the wastewater stream in wastewater treatment plants, but it composes about 50 to 80% of the nutrients to be removed by the wastewater treatment plant. And about 30% of the energy costs of many municipalities goes to removing the nutrients from urine. So it's very costly to deal with. And as I said, it's a great fertilizer, and so there's a potential revenue stream there. And they're now in Sweden, they've done some pilot projects, and now Germany as well. And even in the U.S., they're looking at, there's a company we work with that's trying to work with some municipalities on extracting urine at the wastewater treatment plant and then selling the byproduct to farmers. So that's the future, but those are things to look at because we're stressing resources around the world. Leaks. This is a very simple one. You guys can get significant savings if you stay on top of this. And this is basically a program to work with your staff to have them be aware of leaking faucets and toilets, and turning off the water on a faucet if it's not shut all the way, and making sure they notify your maintenance staff to make repairs quickly. But it's a quick item, and there's a significant amount of water that can be saved by catching these things early. I live in Concord, and our Concord, Massachusetts, we basically banned single-serve water bottles, and that seems to be something that's going to probably take off. We'll see what happens on that. But this gives you perspective on that. Bottled water is about $1.35 a gallon versus tap water at 68 cents, or less than ½ cent, or about ½ cent a gallon off the tap water. And the water quality regulations in most cities are higher than that than bottled water standards. And, one statement I really like is the past chairman of Perrier said, "It struck me, all you had to do was take the water out of the ground, then sell it for more than the price of wine, milk, and for that matter, oil." So it's something that you can do in your hotel to help your guests feel like they're doing the right thing in terms of refilling their bottles and reusing water, reusing the water out of the tap. There's actually fully recessed refrigerated bottle fillers now that count the number of times that people use them and monitor the gallons saved. But you're also saving a lot on plastic reduction by helping people eliminate the use of plastic one-serve bottles. Kitchens are a phenomenal area for reducing water use. The water used to produce a meal is based on a study done by the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority, MWRA, showed that there's between 6 gallons and 29 gallons used per meal. And that's a significant water savings if you can go to the lower end of water use. And that doesn't include the water required to grow the food. This is a slide that sort of gives you a sense of what goes into producing the food and in terms of water use. And those hamburgers are pretty hefty. What we eat has a huge impact on world water supplies and food supplies as well as climate change. And a meat eater will essentially use about 1,320 gallons per meal versus a A vegan is at 89 gallons of water per meal. So kitchen pan washers, there's significant savings to be had here. Some utilities are actually giving these away for free, and so take advantage of that. And you're going to about 0.59 gallons per minute versus 2 to 3 gallons a minute for your pot washers. 16,000 savings over 10 years, 544% reduction return on investment. That definitely beats the stock market. And then there's a number of equipment upgrades that you can do, which basically in your dishwasher, the pre-wash nozzles, you can reduce the flow on those, and that saves a significant amount of water. And then there's sensing gates that can save tremendous amounts of water. Basically senses whether there are dishes in the dishwasher or not, and will shut the dishwasher off if there's no dishes in there. And then if you have an old dishwasher, replace it with a more efficient WaterSense or EPA Energy Star product, and there's significant savings to be had. And definitely go to your utilities. The gas and electric utilities do have financial incentives in many states, and they will pay a significant portion of the cost of these equipment upgrades. And then kitchen behavior. These are no-cost, low-cost kinds of things, but it's getting your staff to get used to handling how they do the dishes. Make sure that the loads are full loads, and they're washing vegetables in a tub and not under running water. Thawing their food in the walk-in refrigerator instead of under running water, and it saves energy on the refrigerator as well. And there's tons and tons of behavior changes that you can do to save energy and water, which we can provide you with. Then on this disposal side, in some states, here in Massachusetts and other states, they're looking at requiring hotels and restaurants to compost, to not throw organics in the trash. You can also check for water flow to the scraper trough and reduce to a minimum, so there's water savings to be had there. Again, these are just operational things that are no-cost kinds of opportunities for a hotel to save water and money. And then you can control the water flow to the garbage disposer with a solenoid valve, and it shuts it off when there's the unit's not operating. Water-cooled ice machines and refrigeration, there's still a lot of those out there. It's a one-through cooling system, so that it uses water on a one-through basis, and there's significant savings to be had. And the utilities, electric and gas utilities, typically electric utilities will provide a financial incentive on these. You go to an air-cooled refrigeration system. 53,000 in 10 years of savings and a 77% return on investment. Not bad. Now, cooling towers, especially people listening in the southern part of the country, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, and so on, you're using cooling a lot more than we are up north up here. And there's significant savings to be had, even in the northern part of the country as well. You're using on a 300 or 500-ton cooling tower about 2.5 million gallons that evaporates, and about 756,000 gallons per year that go down the drains, chemical-laden discharge. Because typically people are using chemicals to treat the cooling towers, and some of these chemicals are not so great. So there's chemical-free water treatment technology. It's an electronic water treatment system that applies on cooling towers, chillers, evaporative condensers, heat exchangers, even rainwater recovery systems, and eliminates the hazardous chemicals, saves water and sewer costs, saves energy, and eliminates the bacteria issues, or not eliminates, but keeps them low enough so Legionella becomes a non-issue, less than 5,000 colony-forming units. And you can reuse the blowdown water for irrigation, recharging groundwater, decorative fountains, fire retention ponds, and cooling. And these systems also provide corrosion protection as well, and it significantly reduces the environmental footprint by enabling you to not have to use these hazardous chemicals, which basically pollute perfectly good drinking water. And how does it work? It's basically electronic water treatment that uses a pulse frequency that makes calcium precipitate on the particles that are being sucked into all these into the cooling towers, and they encapsulate bacteria and so you eliminate scale and you reduce the bacterial levels. This is sort of a case study of a 300-ton cooling tower that is probably pretty typical for most of the hotels that may be listening. And over 10 years, about a $37,000 return. If you are able to reuse the blowdown water for irrigation, etc., it's a $97,000 return over 10 years and a 79% return on investment. Great opportunity to do a number of things in terms of reducing pollution as well as saving on energy and water costs. Water reuse we have sort of a mantra with our operation where we try to see how many times we can reuse water before we put it down the drain to the sewer. So capturing rainwater, blowdown from cooling towers, air handler, condensate, and industrial applications, or regen and other sources. We can capture that in a tank and then reuse it multiple times. If your hotel has an in-house laundry, this is a no-brainer. Laundry ozone systems make the laundry smell great, and but also reduces your energy use by 80 to 90%, and water use 20 to 25%, and sometimes more in some cases. And it also extends the life of the linen and reduces chemicals. And this is the kind of payback you're looking at for an ozone system over time. There are also local utility, electric and gas utility incentives that you should definitely take advantage of here. This is without the incentives. And so you're looking at 135% return on investment and almost $500,000 over 10 years. Swimming pools. Pool covers are an excellent opportunity to save a huge amount of water. This little graph gives you an idea of how much you can save based on the temperature that you're running your pool at. Pool covers also reduce the evaporation and save energy because if you're heating the hot water, if you're splashing a lot of the water out or it's evaporating, then you're having to replace that water with water that's heated. And then lowering the pool level, no cost kind of thing that also reduces splash out and reducing the water use for back flushing your pool filters. These are some of these no cost kinds of things that you can do in a water conservation program. Irrigation, huge opportunities here in that the satellite systems will monitor the prevailing weather and turn your irrigation system off when you don't need it, and it will not overwater your lawns or your plantings based on the soil composition and the water content of the soil as well. Real simple things: don't water when it's raining. Use secondary water sources, like I talked before, cooling tower blowdown and rainwater recovery systems, gray water systems, xeriscaping, plants that are appropriate for your area, and then using drip irrigation. And I think that that comment down below, Americans use about 7 billion gallons of water for landscaping every day, is pretty daunting. Now, if you're having problems with coming up with cash to do these projects, there's some excellent opportunities and techniques to deal with that. Off-balance sheet transactions where you can actually pay for these water and energy efficiency measures through your electric utility bill or commodity bill, and so there's no cost, and you over time reduce your operating costs actually on day one. Also, purchasing fuel. If you're purchasing renewable energy, you're saving a significant amount of water. As the chart shows here, the wind and solar PV essentially use zero water to some in the production of the materials, but compared to a coal power plant or a nuclear power plant, significant cooling requirements, and so there's lots of water losses as a result. So if you're purchasing fuel, this is a good way to help reduce water use on a larger scale. So what to do next? You need taking action, getting involved, you need to make a commitment to identify the water efficiency measures and energy efficiency measures and have a vision for how you're going to go about implementing these programs. And you need to be hard-headed about it. Make sure you're using technologies that have been proven and that are working, and other hotels have been successful with, and the Energy Star and EPA WaterSense programs can help you there. Being creative and listening to your staff is a great opportunity to find ways to reduce energy and water costs. But understanding how water is used, monitoring and graphing it on a weekly or daily basis is a great way to do it if you do it with an energy management system. Management support's really important, and showing commitment by establishing specific goals like Ruben talked about earlier with some of these other hotels. And then looking for changes. They're out there listening to the staff. The EPA WaterSense label products and program are great sources of ideas, and keeping up on maintenance. And using your internal newsletter to highlight your progress and graphically is a great way to go. And then get guests and staffs to participate with literature and stickers in the rooms. So in summary, on the big picture, we really can't live without water, and we need to protect our drinking water supplies and ensure habitats for animals and plants and ecosystems are maintained, and also reduce pollution. And we also have an obligation to meet the water needs of our kids and grandkids and future generations. So that concludes my discussion, but I've been tasked with also talking about some of the EPA programs. Just a few more slides here. And EPA has developed a WaterSense program. It's been around for a while, and they have identified water efficiency products, homes, programs, and practices. And they've basically over 100,000 different models that have earned the label. And this is a great source of information for you guys on identifying products that work. The WaterSense program's goals are basically, the challenge are to raise awareness. This is something that you as hotels can participate in. And we really encourage you to do it. You'll receive a lot of really helpful information, but it raises awareness on WaterSense among hotel facility managers, and it provides training and tools to assist the hotel facility managers in saving water, energy, and money. And you're also going to get information on educating hotel managers, employees, guests about water efficiency as well. And the hotel pledges, as part of this program, pledges to assess, change, and track water use throughout the year 2014. Hotels join the challenge by signing on online, and the website, you can check out the website down below here, and we encourage you to do that. And you pledge to track and reduce water use in your facilities and participate in educational opportunities to learn about water savings and best management practices. And once the hotel takes the pledge, they'll immediately receive a welcome email with several items to promote their participation, including a participation logo they can post on their websites, social media outlets, in brochures, and on window clings, or in the in-room or lobby signage. However, it's important to note this is not really an endorsement or certification by the WaterSense or EPA. It's merely a sign of participation in the program. I think that ultimately that will come eventually, but worth looking at. And also, Portfolio Manager now has more details on water as well as energy, which is something to look at as well. So that concludes my my presentation.
George, could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and everyone could hear me. This is Dan Ruben again. I want to thank Dan Cook for that fabulous presentation. I think, Dan, you made a very compelling case that that hotels have a lot to gain by reducing their water use, and the world has a lot to gain also. Now I'd like to introduce Mike Rosenkranz from GEXPRO. I asked Mike to be a speaker on this webinar series because I see that a lot of hotels are saving money and reducing energy use by installing energy commutated motors, EC motors, and that this is a really nice opportunity that I wanted to make hoteliers aware about if they're not already. Mike is the Director of Energy Solutions for Massachusetts for GEXPRO, and he's here to talk about EC motor retrofit opportunities typically found in hotels. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Rosenkranz from GEXPRO. GEXPRO is an electrical distributor with over 150 locations worldwide and is part of Rexel, which is the largest electrical distributor in the world. And within our organization, we have a dedicated energy solutions team whose primary role is to assist our sales staff and their customers with energy conservation and energy generation projects. And we break that down into 5 vertical market segments, and that is lighting, industrial automation, commercial controls, solar solutions, and motors and drives. I spend the majority of my time in the motor and drive retrofit markets, and over the past several years, I've been retrofitting motors almost exclusively in the hospitality industry. I'd like to thank Dan Ruben and the Boston Green Tourism, and as well as the EPA for organizing the event today. GEXPRO was invited to talk about EC motors in a live event back in December of 2012 for Boston Green Tourism. And since that event, we've retrofitted over 6,000 guest room motors here in the local market, and are currently working on more properties from coast to coast on those who are still interested in saving motor retrofits. Just tremendous results, and we're happy to be back today on the kickoff meeting of what seems to be a great webinar series. So I appreciate your time today. We have just a small block of time, so I'd like to touch upon 3 applications of retrofitting motors for hotels, and here's the agenda. So first, I'm going to touch upon what is an EC motor and what are some of the benefits of EC motor technology. And then we're going to jump in and identify 3 applications for motor replacements that are typically found within hotel properties. So first, what is an ECM motor, or electronically commutated motor? Well, it's defined as the motors powered by direct current DC electricity and have electronic commutation systems rather than mechanical commutators and brushes. The result of this design change yields some of the following benefits. A little bit of a technical definition, but it's important that the benefits of this change are the higher efficiency, less susceptibility to mechanical wear, increased reliability, they're quieter, we can control them in a fully variable speed manner, and we can implement all sorts of controls. This building cutaway on the screen now illustrates a typical retrofit motor opportunities within a commercial building. Opportunities exist from the cooling towers on the roof all the way to the pumps in the basement and everywhere in between. Anywhere there is air or water moving, we can trace it back to one or several motor retrofit opportunities to reduce our consumption. The takeaway on today's talk should be not only do we need to look at a more efficient direct replacement, but also we need to review how efficiently we're operating our motors. Similar to integral horsepower motors with external variable frequency drives on some of the larger applications, fractional horsepower EC motors can be controlled and tuned to wring out every last bit of energy efficiency possible for an application. For those of you who have heard of EC motor technology and have heard of other projects about retrofitting that have taken place and weren't sure where to start, the first application, commercial refrigeration, has the least barriers to entry. We're looking at replacing existing motors to EC technology in your walk-in coolers, primarily coolers and freezer boxes. This application is the start of your motor retrofit experience. I'd like to compare this application to what we did all did several years back. We took the 100-watt incandescent bulbs out of our guest room lamps and replaced them to 23-watt CFLs. You know, we did that for all the guest rooms in the building, and after the change, we waited for the following month's electric bill to come in. And when it finally did, we were high-fiving each other left and right. Well, you fast forward to today, and that 23-watt CFL is now the annoying number that the 100 watt used to be. We're now looking to upgrade that number to a 12 or a 13 watt LED bulb. But we've learned a little bit, over the past several years. We know better. It doesn't matter how efficient the product is when it's used in an inefficient manner. When converting to LED, we know that a 12 watt number will soon be the next annoying level. So what do we do today? We have to add control. We need to dim or turn off the lights when they're not needed. And that's what makes a successful conversion measure. The same is true for an EC motor retrofit within a walk-in cooler or a freezer. The graph shows you're currently at about 120 watt consumption for your existing motors, and you can drop in an EC motor retrofit replacement, and you're now down to 40 watts. So, not bad, but we can do better. So as we dig into this particular application, we need to find out where the additional savings can be. So when you go into your basement and go into the walk-in coolers and freezers and you move all the carts with the delicious desserts that I always have to see every time I do the audits, this will expose, your evaporator coils mounted to either the ceiling or the back walls. And in the top right corner of the screen, there's a picture of what those look like. So how does this application work? Well, compressors in a remote location push refrigerant through the coils as ambient air is sucked through, reducing that air temperature, and then is redistributed back into the room by the motors. The room reaches the desired temperature, and the compressors will turn off, and the refrigerant will stop flowing. Typically, what we find when we're out there now is that the existing fans will still be operating at full speed. So what you have now is you have a heater blowing hot air back into the space that you just cooled. Not very efficient, but it's an opportunity. Although the heat contribution on the EC motor will be less, it still has its inefficiencies as the application itself. So what do? Like lighting, we need to add the controls, and EC motors are designed to be controlled. With the addition of a speed controller, we measure the delta of the supply air and the return air, or we tie it directly into the thermostat. And when these controls sense that there's no refrigerant flowing, the control sends a signal to the motor to run at a lower speed, saving almost 93% energy, as you see on the graph. The lower speed of the EC motor will also produce less heat into the space, and that limits the amount of time that compressors are running, and that saves additional energy. So, and this is typically in this mode, which you see here, for 50 to 60% of the time. And when the controller senses the cooler air, full speed is activated, efficiently bringing the room back up to temperature. And this particular application, no matter where you are in the country, produces an ROI of about 2 years or less. The barriers to entry in this particular application are very low. The material cost is low. The run hours are usually high, sometimes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Material installation cost is also low. And GEXPRO has been retrofitting these motors for over a decade now. We have almost $1.5 million in this particular application installed. So the product went from a custom application to basically an on-the-shelf drop-in replacement. So a couple of small points in an audit, maybe some photos, some nameplate information, and you're well on your way to saving this sort of energy in your walk-in boxes and freezers. The next application I'm going to talk about is kind of, has a lot more opportunity within the hotels, is retrofitting guest room fan coil and heat pump motors. I've worked on a lot of different energy conservation applications, and oftentimes you need to give up something you had before in order to save energy. Excuse me. I compare this to buying your dream house. Well, after your search, you end up giving up a feature or two that you can live without. You want 4 bedrooms, a garage, a big backyard, and good schools. Well, then reality hits, and you give up the garage for the better education for your kids. The same thing happens when we retrofit lighting. We give up some of the features that we've become accustomed to before. Dimming compatibility, glare, color, beam spread, and the overall new, different, futuristic look of the light. But then we need to decide what we have to give up or what we need to adapt to realize the benefit of reducing our consumption. And what I find interesting about the fan coil retrofit application is that it's all upside. That dream motor does exist for you. You're left with a large list of features and benefits that you didn't have access to before, and you're saving energy and money in the process. The core of the motor's design is to save energy. You know, in this particular slide here, it's from the Hyatt Regency Cambridge, just outside of Boston. We retrofitted about 450 guest room motors, and this is just a quick watt snapshot of the before and after. So you're at about 55–60% savings. But the real discussion when retrofitting guest room ECM motors is you have that underlying core that the product is designed to save energy. But it's all about the features and benefits and why you should retrofit. There's been a lot of work already done in the properties that I've been to and that my colleagues have been into, trying to control the lights, trying to control the HVAC space, and we've seen it all. We've seen key card slots, smart thermostats, occupancy controls, door switches, window switches, you name it. It goes on and on. Well, all these smart features are trying to control one dumb, inefficient motor that is left existing. So the EC guest room motor retrofit kind of ties in all those previous pieces you did before and is the final piece of the puzzle. And on top of saving energy, the motor is packed with a bunch of features to help solve problems. That you encounter every single day. First, for everybody on the line in the hotel industry, I'd like to commend you all for getting up every day and trying to do the impossible, which is please everyone. EC motor technology can definitely help. We have numerous control features through computer programming that solves challenges we see in the field every day. And all these features are included as a standard. So we can operate the motor exactly on the system you had before with no changes. You'll experience that 30 to 50% energy savings, and you'll get brand new motors. Or we can fully engineer a custom solution based on some of the problems or issues you're having in the field. We can increase the CFM in certain rooms or certain sides of the building that are having trouble or heating and cooling the space. We can adjust the slew rate of the motor, which is the amount of time it takes for the motor to reach the programmed RPM. We've had several hotel visits where the units were actually located only a couple of feet or within a couple of feet of the guest's pillow. So this particular feature really saved a lot of complaints. We walk through the back of the house and we see the charts, the percentages, the complaint percentages, and how the hotels are stacked up against each other. So this particular feature definitely reduces noise and kind of ticks down those percentages where it puts you in a better spot versus your peers. So the motors at night would be instant on, reaching full speed in a matter of 1 second, waking up the guest. And the slow ramp or up-down speeds provides a nice transition from off to on, and when it's changing in between speeds. This also reduces the mechanical wear on the rotor because it's a nice soft start. And some of the other hotels that we've seen have used their low-speed fan setting as a constant fan, which is the most inefficient setting on the existing motor. The EC motor can be set to run at a low RPM to keep the room fresh if there's any issues on that, while consuming about 90% less energy than the existing motor running on a low speed.
Mike, a couple more minutes.
So connecting the motor can also be simplified by removing loud clicking relays, and there's a multiple of input options. So we can use the existing line voltage hookups that you had before, or we can eliminate the relays, reducing maintenance, and tie directly into a 24-volt thermostat. All these features, whether we use them or not, leaves you in a position to upgrade to new controls as we emerge into the market. If you retrofit your motors this week, and Dan has a webinar presenter 6 weeks from now talking about the state-of-the-art guest room control, well, you don't need to worry. There's probably a feature in there that's just one program away to take advantage of what's coming down the line. And a quick story for control capabilities was we had just come off a retrofit of a hotel in the Boston area. And we got a call back about a month after that saying they had a guest coming in who was receiving medical care at a downtown Boston, and the duration of his stay was actually about 3 months. After the retrofit, the fan noise was dramatically reduced, but the guest commented on the noise of the fan coil unit. So this particular guest comfort, it was very important to their health that they remain comfortable. So we were able to come back in, adjust the parameters of the motor, spread out that slew rate even more than it was, reduce the CFM levels, keep the fan almost silent, and something that would have never been possible without EC motor technology. And another slide here to illustrate how control contributes to additional energy savings. This particular was a building, commercial building in New York, this data came from. And over the course of 50 years, the motors have been replaced several times, and they were way out of manufacturer specification. So if we went in and we matched the existing conditions, it would have resulted in a 64% energy savings matching what was there. Upon further research, we were able to tune the motors to put out the exact original OEM specified CFM and gain an additional 15% savings. And that 15% savings was very important because this particular property had 7,000 motors.
Let me see what we put pricing on that, okay?
And then the last application, real quick here, I just want to touch upon, same idea to conserve energy except we're pumping water instead of moving air. And typically, your pool and spa motors, if you have them within your hotels, run on full speed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Saving a ton of money is one motor and just an arithmetic problem away. So local codes will dictate how often the amount of water needs to run through the filter. And we take the number of gallons in the pool or spa, and we take the flow rate on the filter, the local code requirements, and typically we find that the pool, the water is being funneled through that filter 3 to 4 times a day more than necessary. So what we do is we add one motor, variable speed pool pump motor, permanent magnet, electronically commutated, and it has a built-in time clock. And we run the pump on lower speeds during the day where peak demand charges are at the greatest. And during off-peak hours, that motor then ramps back up to high, so we satisfy our local codes, and that's how we save energy there. And we can just exactly turn that water, the bare minimum on the code, we can turn that water in a 24-hour period. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time today, and again, the takeaway is just not only think about the existing motors you have, retrofitting them with new efficient technologies, but also take a step back and really understand what the motors within your building are, how they're operating, and how we can improve efficiencies there by adding controls.
Thank you, Mike. That was a fabulous presentation, and I hope a lot of hotels take advantage of it. I know a lot of hotels will take advantage of it. George, do we have questions?
Yes, we do. Yes. Hi, Dan. This is Rob Gilman here at EPA, and we have a number of questions that come in, and so, Dan, this one's going to be for you. A variety of them came in that talk about the veracity of claims and certifications, and the concern is that a corporate claim about the greenness of a hotel might come up, but the franchises may not follow that. And similarly with certifications, once a hotel gets certified, of course, changes can be made after that. So how is it that those sorts of, how can those issues be addressed, and what's your experience with that?
Well, I think the first thing to say is there is no perfect hotel certification, and there's no perfect way of saying your hotel is greener than the next hotel. I think that the easiest way to say that a hotel is green is to show the certification. And the other thing, when hotels provide messages, it's tell people what you do without any embellishment or claim. If you say, we've reduced energy use by 25%, that's a very strong statement. And so, and it's a factual statement, and it's different than saying we're the greenest hotel in the city. So show your certifications and tell your guests the facts of what you do, of what you've done and what you do.
Great. This is a question that Dan Cook might be able to answer. It has to do with some suspicion about the safety of tap water, and wondering if it really is true that tap water is free of contaminants, and maybe there are issues like spills that might influence the health and safety of tap waters. And so anything you know about that?
Yeah, I think you've got to test your own water, and that's probably the best way to go about doing it. Certainly, there are areas around the country where there have been pollutants that have gotten into the groundwater, and that may be the source of the water supply. But there's standards that are required to be met. So tap water is generally pretty good. I'm on well water myself, but I test my water on a regular basis. So.
Great, and here's a question from Michael. It has to do with wondering about the popularity of energy efficiency strategies. What does the market tell you, and are there any, sort of as a side question, are there any kind of utility rebates that could help fund any retrofits or upgrades?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. Up here in the Northeast in Boston, we're definitely spoiled by for energy retrofit projects. We're spoiled by high rebates. I mean, high electric costs and lucrative rebates. But you know, as we do more and more projects, the word is getting out about EC motor retrofit technology, and the utilities are embracing this. They want comprehensive non-lighting measures. And a lot of people are looking to get excess rebate amounts by providing a comprehensive project. So the utility wants you to go into a building once and do a bunch of non-lighting measures, and they'll pay you more for it. And we're seeing that those programs that were originally started in California are very prominent here in New England, and those are spreading south and west, everywhere in between. So there's a lot of popularity on finding those non-lighting applications.
Great. Here's another question for Dan Cook. It has to do with the slide that you had that talked about using condensate from cooling towers for irrigation purposes, and there was a large amount of savings that could be had. And the question relates to the water, if it has contaminants that landscapers need to be concerned with.
Yeah, that's certainly something that needs to be looked at. With chemical treated cooling tower blowdown, you definitely do not want to use that as irrigate, to irrigate, or it has to go to sewer. But with these new chemical, they're not really that new actually. They've been around for over a decade now. These chemical-free electronic water treatment technologies, the water is actually quite clean, and it all depends on, you're concentrating some minerals in the existing water supply, but you're not adding any chemicals. So in fact, you can reuse that water, diluting it with maybe condensate from air handlers for irrigation. We're doing that in a number of locations. We're using that condensate also for decorative fountains, for fire retention ponds. We actually have permits to re-inject the blowdown water from cooling towers into the groundwater. It's still clean enough to meet standards.
Great, thanks, Dan. And my last question has to do with incentive programs. A little plug for EPA. It turns out that WaterSense and Energy Star in 2014 are launching something called the Battle of the Buildings, which will allow buildings to compete with each other around water savings. And the question has to do with, as anyone, including Dan Ruben, has anyone heard of any other sort of competitions or incentive programs that can be used to spur action among hotels?
Rob, say that again. What other incentive programs are there for hotels?
Right. This Battle of the Buildings is a participation effort that's used to reach out to hotels and get them excited, incentivize them to compete with each other. And have you heard of anything, any other strategies that are similar to this, or that could be used, say, in a city or other kinds of areas where there's groups of hotels together?
Well, I know. I mean, there's the WaterSense challenge. There's the food waste challenge, both with EPA. There are some prods, like posting Energy Star scores. And then there are some chains and hotel groups that use internal competitions. And there are also hotels and hotel groups that reward hotels that achieve the biggest energy use or the greatest recycling percentages. So yeah, there are various programs like this.
Great. Well, that's the last of the questions that we have. We do have a list of questions that have been submitted that will be given to Dan Ruben and the organizers, and people will be getting responses from the presenters as well.
So is this the time to wrap up?
I just want to say something. For folks that are emailing me about the presentations, I did receive your emails. I will be sending out the presentations first thing tomorrow morning. But once again, if you would like a copy of the presentation, I will quickly, as Dan Ruben is doing closing remarks, will post my email on the question box.
And one last comment is that a quiz has been put together following the presentation. So if people want to check their knowledge following this, they'll have an opportunity to do so. So be on alert for that invitation as well.
So lastly, from my point of view, I want to thank the speakers. I want to thank the organizers from EPA and people in the audience. I want to strongly encourage you to come to our next session, which is a week from today. We're going to have speakers on how to reduce energy use as a whole in hotels, how to green up your food service, and green hotel renovations. Again, when we post these presentations, we will send out an email to everybody to let you know the link. So thanks again for attending, and we will see you in a week. George, Rob?